Welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only show dedicated to the process and strategies for transforming apartment buildings to thriving communities. I am your host, John Brackett, and welcome to the show. All right, folks, welcome to another great episode of We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only place where you come to learn how to take apartment buildings and turn them into amazing communities. So, hey, I am your host, John Brackett. I have another great guest. His name is David Dodge, and David is out of Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri to be exact. David, unique guest, right? Now, normally I don't have wholesalers on the show, but this is someone that I really feel is going to add not only a lot of value to our audience, but it's going to give us some very unique insight because he has sold and purchased over 500 properties. He owns 70 units himself, predominantly multifamily, about 80% multifamily. It's going to be a unique conversation because oftentimes we hear a lot about, people buying wholesale and people making money wholesale, but also from my standpoint, where I'm buying apartment buildings continuously throughout the year, I always wanted to ask someone who's making a living wholesaling, how they're doing it, the profitability, some of the challenges, pitfalls, how do they make that business work, right? So welcome to the show, man. Super excited to have you on. I think this is going to be a great conversation for our audience. Welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. 80% of my properties are actually single families.
Single family. Okay, I thought I said that.
But no big deal.
I apologize.
Yeah, I got about 77 properties. The unit count's probably somewhere around 100, give or take. I don't even keep track of units. I count roofs. Everybody does it a little differently. So I got about 70 roofs, and some of those have 2s and 4s and 10s. I have a 10 as well, but mostly single families. Just to kind of build on what you said, I've been investing in real estate for about 15 years. The first 10 years, very, very passively, buying retail through an agent, 1 or 2 a year, basically for the first 10 years. And I was just buying rentals at that point. I wasn't buying fix and flip or doing any wholesaling at all. I was buying rentals and I was getting an 80% loan, a traditional loan, putting down 20%, paying full retail, through an agent. Well, I wanted to be a real estate investor. That was like my goal. I didn't want to quit my job, or I had 4 or 5 random businesses that didn't make any money. Most of them were losing money every month. Story of the entrepreneur, right? And I just said, I want to be a full-time real estate investor. All these guys that I know that have decided to do this, but are still doing it, right? Like they're in their 60s or 70s. Like these guys make the rich people I know look poor, right? Like I'm talking some of these guys I know making $300,000 to $500K a month, but they have all their properties paid off and they've been doing this for 30, 40 years. And it's just like, holy cow, you guys are crushing it. So I looked at my options, and real estate investor had a couple different, options or doors that I could have opened. And then of course there was the agent, and I had zero interest in being an agent. So I decided to just dive in and do anything and everything real estate investing. I didn't have a ton of money at the time, right? So wholesaling came to, I discovered it. And I'll tell you what, since I learned about wholesaling, it has changed my life. In the last 5 years, I have wholesaled over 500 properties with the help of my team. I'm not a superstar, don't get me wrong. I do have a team that I put in place to help do these deals. To me, wholesaling is a means to an end. Okay, I love it. I'll never stop doing it. In fact, I wrote a book on it called The Ultimate Guide to Wholesaling Real Estate. So I absolutely love it, but it is a means to an end. And what I mean by that is, I'm usually looking for my next fix and flip or my next rental property. And I just have a simple motto that we use within our company. It's, keep the best for ourselves and wholesale the rest, right? So keep the best and wholesale the rest, or keep the best and sell everything else is another way to word it. But essentially, wholesaling is just a way for me to find my deals, right? So let's talk just a little bit about wholesaling. Wholesaling isn't investing, in my opinion. I have a very strong opinion about this, John. I think wholesaling is a marketing business. And
I agree 100%. That's why this show is going to be about marketing, man.
That's right. So, the thing about marketing is it's a great way to find your deals, and it's the only way to find your deals, in my opinion, unless you're willing to pay commissions and pay retail on top of that. I look at investing more as once you start taking risk. Now, one could say if you put some money into marketing that is risk. I don't know if I agree with that. I look at it more as an investment because you get leads. And if you can't close those leads, maybe that's your problem, not the problem of the market itself, right?
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, okay, bud? I'm going to
Please.
ask you a couple of
Okay.
questions. So, first of all, man, I really appreciate the summary. Thanks so much also for clarifying that 70 roofs, not 70 apartment units. You told me that, and I knew that. I'm just so used to talking in terms of apartment buildings that it
Yes,
just came
sir.
out. But here's the cool thing, okay? Really, what this show is about, David, it's really about marketing direct to sellers, right? How to be an amazing marketer directly to sellers. By the way, all the properties that I have in my portfolio, with the exception of one, has all been seller direct. And I'm
Yep.
getting ready to open escrow on another that is through a broker. But literally everything that we've kept, with the exception of now likely two of them, right, marketing directly to sellers. Okay. Even a very large bill that I'm working on right now has been seller direct. And I have several of those in my pipeline. So I love going direct to sellers. For one, I love people, but I think it's just a better way to do business because it puts you in a position where you have the opportunity to solve problems, right? I mean, if you can't solve any problems, I mean, I'm not much help to people. So I literally tell them that, and I look for problems to solve. So with that being said, this conversation, man, is really about learning how to go directly to sellers, and it's about marketing, right? So let's start there. So talk to us a little bit about how you market to sellers directly, man.
I love it, man. And that's the name of the game. That's where
It really
everything
is. It
starts.
really is.
That's where everything starts, guys. If you want to be a landlord, if you want to be a rehabber, if you want to be, any type of real estate investor, it always starts with the acquisition, right? And we've probably all heard the saying, you make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell. If you haven't heard it, that's like the number one rule of investing, in my opinion. You always make your money when you buy, you get paid when you sell it. But the money is typically made on the purchase, right?
Right.
So the question was, what kind of marketing do I do? Man, I've done it all. We do a lot of direct mail. We'll have bandit sign campaigns a few times a year where we'll buy a few hundred, if not a few thousand of them and just get them out all over. I'm on the radio in my local market. I got 2 stations going right now, and I'm about to take that to about 7 or 8. We get our lists online as well as drive for dollars to create our own lists. And then once we have those lists, we skip trace those lists. I have a team of about 5 cold callers right now, and one guy that does full-time cold texting. So we do cold calling, cold texting, radio, driving for dollars, as well as list purchases that we get online. I mentioned direct mail. We do some bandit signs. No, there's at least 5 things that I didn't even mention that I'm doing.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. That's a great basis to start, right? So let me frame this a little bit for our audience, man, and put this into a context that most people will be able to digest and understand, right? So inside of sales and marketing, or inside of going direct to sellers, we have two components of that, right? Technically, we have advertising, marketing, and sales. We're going to speak to going direct to sellers and finding great deals through that lens or through that frame, right? First, we have to advertise to generate leads. Okay. And then we market to them, right? Usually some follow-up campaigns, some drip systems. And then from there, we weed out the best, funnel them down, and we find the best people to call on, and we pick up the phone and we start a conversation, right? For me, it's identifying problems to solve. All right. So now that's the frame that we're going to operate within, right? So let's start now with advertising. Okay. What are your top 3 advertising funnels, if you will, that drive the best and most profitable leads for you, at least over the last, say, 2 years?
Perfect. So I could break it down into 3 things essentially. I would say 75% of my deals over the last, let's say 12 months, even more narrow, has been from the efforts of cold calling and cold texting. The other 25% have been from the efforts of radio. So I really like the cold calling and cold texting because I can either buy a list or I can go create one by driving for dollars. And it's very specific, right? So we're definitely, zeroing in on people that we get off of a list, which could
Great.
be vacant, high equity, absentee owned, divorce, probate, some sort of a lien, unpaid taxes or tax delinquents. I mean, you name it, right? And then also the driving for dollars. So we'll take those lists that are either created or bought, we'll skip trace them, They go to my team of cold callers. That same list goes to my guy that does my team, I should say, of texting. So we have people hitting calls and text to these individuals, trying to figure out who wants to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested in selling. From there, somebody on my team that does acquisitions will call and qualify them, either set an appointment or make a preliminary offer, or determine if it's an unqualified lead. Then we'll send it to our agents to try to convert to get a listing that way. So we have a couple different exits. So again, 75% cold call, cold text. And again, that's very narrow, right? That's very like direct, right? The other 25%, we use radio. We just cast a large net, which basically goes about 50 miles in every direction, on some stations farther. But, with the radio, you can target the station, which has a demographic of people, of course, but that's it. You can't just target, divorces on the radio. So I like that we do both, right? We definitely target our niche lists, but we also have that broad blanket marketing that goes out on the radio as well to bring in deals. And I would say maybe, 20 to 25% of our deals kind of come in that way. So those three things have made up, I'd go as far as say 95% of my marketing. I haven't done a ton of direct mail recently or bandit signs or any of these other things I've mentioned. But again, I do these things from time to time. And I've done a lot of them in the past too.
Okay, awesome, man. I really appreciate that. So do you like baseball?
I like it, but I don't follow it. Couldn't name 5 players probably.
I don't either, but what we're known for on this show, man, is providing golden $1 million nuggets to our audience to help them build massive wealth, right? The good news is you're already on your way. So you started off at home plate, man. Okay, I threw you a fastball, you bunted it, and now you're on first base. And that fastball, by the way, was talking about advertising, right? Because advertising is huge. I'm going to speak to this a little bit, right? Because, here's the reality. It's really important to, I think, make the distinction that to be able to go directly to a seller, okay, is a skill, right? Great deals, man, they don't just fall from the heavens. They get created. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about in more detail how you're creating these deals, okay? So the first thing is, which I do as well, my number one source is refining a list. I'll usually target 50 apartment buildings for the whole year, and I'll call on them, very high hit rates, and I'm looking for problems to solve, right? Okay, only 50. Only 50, that works really, really well for me. List, call, make sure the list is really clean, and that works really well. Now, what you
50,
do though is
50 a day or 50 a year?
50 a year, man. That's it. 50 a year.
Can't you get through that in a day though? Obviously they're not all going to have problems, but you could probably reach
I'll tell you a really funny story. So 2019, I pulled a list of 30 properties that I was targeting for development, right? In my second week, I set appointments with all of them, every single one of them, okay? Of the 30, let me see if I get these ratios right. Everybody was open to meeting, but only half of them had a problem that I felt I could solve. And I was very upfront about that, right? I said, hey, look, I'm probably not the person for that, but I would refer them out to brokers that I felt were just better suited for them, okay? So of the 12, met with all 12, end up closing 3 of those with options, okay? And so now we have 150 development deals, units in our pipeline going through the planning process, right? That's a function of that. That's why I've learned not to, for me, that doesn't work, right? I'd rather narrow my focus, and that works for me. Okay, so let's get back to the calls. You also do text messaging. So refining a list, calling them direct, calling seller direct. You do follow-up text messages, and then also radio ads. Okay, but here's the big thing that you said. You have an offer that you make, right? So you're calling, generating a lead, qualifying, and you're making an offer really big. So that's another way for me to say I'm looking for problems to solve. I'm making an offer. Really important, right? We have to have an offer with every sales opportunity or every call that we get out there, every piece of direct mail, whatever the medium is. In this case, the medium is calling sellers directly, and it's also text messaging, right? So let's talk a little bit about the offer, man, because the offer is a big one. The offer, David, it's going to slide you into home plate, man. So I just threw you a pitch asking for some very good offers that our audience can really think about and start using to target apartment owners. So what are your top 3 offers?
I love it, man. I love it. So I'm more on the single family side, guys. I definitely want to lead with that. So, my approach may be something that you like and want to use it. You may disagree with it, and that's
It's
okay,
okay.
right?
It's okay.
That's
Yeah,
okay. I just want to lead with that because I don't want, people thinking that this is the only way.
I
That's
get it.
never the case. I disagree with some of the industry's largest sales trainers on certain topics, but I agree with a lot of other things they say, right? Basically, whenever we get an inbound call or we're calling somebody that raised their hand from some of our marketing and we're calling them outbound, we introduce ourselves just like I'm about to do now. We'll
Right.
say, hi, this is David with House Sold Easy. That's the name of my acquisition company. I'm looking forward to getting to know more about you and your property. But before I do so, I just want to make something really clear to you. I do not typically pay retail. I am an investor and I plan on purchasing this property to fix it up and flip it or to rent it, assuming that you're willing to sell it to me. So if you're looking for retail, I'm probably not the guy for you. I lead with that. All
Okay,
right.
so do sellers understand the distinction between retail and wholesale? Why do you actually incorporate wholesale versus retail into that language?
They don't know wholesale, and I never say wholesale to them either. But what I will say is that I don't pay retail. So if the zestimate of their property is 120 grand, I'm not going to be anywhere near that number, regardless of how nice it is. So that's why I tell them that. I don't imply that I'm only trying to buy wholesale. I just want them to know that if they are wanting full retail for that property, that I don't want to waste their time. And
Get
really
it?
what I'm saying is I don't want you wasting my time. That's really what I mean. But I imply it like, hey, I don't want to waste your time, sir. So, basically I'll just say, hey, I'm Dave. I'm looking forward to talking with you about the property, but I just want to make it clear that I don't pay retail. And while I'm saying that, I usually pull up PropStream or Zillow and I want to get that estimated number that they both give you, right? So Redfin, I believe, gives you one. Realtor.com may have an estimate of it. So you can just pull up any of these sites and you can get a quick estimate. And if you can find 2 or 3 of them online, then just average those numbers together, right? And usually people that we're calling on, they have a problem, right? And it doesn't matter to them that they know that. I mean, basically what I'm trying to tell them is I have zero plans of moving in your house, right? I am buying it to make a profit on it, either to fix it up and flip it or to rent it out. But at some point in the future, I'm going to be selling it and I'm going to be making a profit, right? So by definition, let's just talk about business for just 1 second. If you go and you look up the definition of business, it's the act of making money, right? It's that simple. It's a couple words, the act of making money. And as an investor, you are engaging in business, right? It's very simple, but you take on risk as an investor, right? Business doesn't necessarily assume risk. Investing does. It's still the act of making money,
Business
but it's
does as well.
assuming,
It does. They both have an
well,
element
it
of risk.
does. By
You understand what you
definition,
mean?
it doesn't. So I just let them know, hey, I'm an investor and this is my business. Therefore, I don't pay retail. However, John, if you are looking to sell, I can pay cash. I do all my own inspections. I'm going to purchase the house as is, so you don't have to clean, fix, or paint anything. And I can close it very, very fast, relatively speaking. I leave that part out, but
Okay.
we can dive into that real quickly as well. Because traditionally, when you list a property, you're looking at 2 to 3 months, best case scenario to sell it. If that house needs a lot of work, it could be 6 to 8 months or never. I can usually close a deal in 2 to 3 weeks.
So, question for you. So, it sounds like the offer that you're making is right. I am here to make your life easy, but you're
Well, that's
qualifying.
all wholesalers do is provide convenience in exchange for a discount. Like, let's take a most simplest approach, right? What does a wholesaler do? Let's back up.
You have to put this in the context, man, of our audience, right?
Mhm.
So, when our audience is listening to this, we have to provide this information in a way where people can say, okay, you know what? When I leave the show, I can apply this, right?
I
So,
love it. I can do that real easy, John. You
okay,
got
cool.
it.
So, think about this. So, the first offer that you made, if you had to summarize that in one sentence, what would it be?
Just an intro to who I am and to disqualify myself.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then what would the second offer be? So I'm sure you guys have a couple different offers that you make out there to your sellers going direct.
Yeah, so the second offer is to explain the fact that I do want a discount, but in exchange for that, they get a ton of convenience.
Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. That totally understand, right? And then what would offer number 3 be?
Offer number 3 would be assuming that, that we're on the same page from the first 2 offers that I made you.
Right.
I would love to either make you an offer or set up a time to come out and meet you and look at the property and give you what I would say to be an offer.
Bam! I like that. Yeah. So
Yep.
you're closing for the appointment, right? So assuming that there's a problem there to solve and that there's an opportunity, they're qualified, then you ask for an appointment, right? So the
Mhm.
third offer would be an appointment. But it sounds like you're not making these offers in tandem. It really just depends on maybe the list. But the point there being is those are your top 3 offers, right? And those offers can be modified. So our audience, for example, if they're apartment investors, which 90% of the people on the show are, they can modify that offer to appeal more to an apartment seller. But the point there being
Correct.
is an offer. Okay. All right. So you're calling, you're sending text messages. Now let's talk about radio. These are the mediums that you use to generate leads, right? List, call, text, and now radio. So talk to us about the offers that you're making on the radio, because for sure you're making offers on the radio, right? What do those look like?
Our offers are always the same. We don't go light on a probate deal or anything like that. So let me just say one thing, John. I just want to say one thing. I think that no matter what type of investor you are, this will be a good gold nugget for people, right? So wholesalers in general, let's take a step back. What does a wholesaler do? What value does the wholesaler provide to the marketplace? Well, in my opinion, it's liquidity. That's it. All a wholesaler does is they provide liquidity. If you have a property that's going to probably take 6 months to a year to sell on the MLS and it's going to be a huge pain in the butt, you can do that same thing in 6 to 10 days if you're willing to sell it at a discount. I'll come in and buy it if you're going to give me half off, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's only a 20 or 30% discount, maybe it takes 3 or 4 weeks. But regardless, wholesalers do nothing but provide liquidity. So that's what. Now let's talk about how, right? How wholesalers do it. They do nothing more than provide convenience in exchange for that discount. So by knowing that, all right, all the audience now knows that you, should never pay retail for a property. You always got to buy it at a discount. But in exchange for buying at a discount, you have to offer convenience. So if you are dealing with somebody that isn't willing to give you a discount, why would you go offer that same level of convenience to them that you would to the guy that's basically giving the house to you at 50 cents on the dollar? What I'm saying though is what separates the good investors, John, from the newbies is the good investors know their value. They know that if they're going to go out of their way to buy something as is and pay cash and close quick, that they have to get a discount. They demand it. And I lead with it because basically what I'm getting at is if I can't get a discount, why am I on the phone with you? Why would I go out of my way to pay cash, close fast, and do all this as is little to no inspection stuff if I'm not getting that discount? So,
okay, cool. So let me ask you this. So what is the average margin then in dollars on your wholesale deals in Missouri?
Our average wholesale deal is about anywhere between 7 and 10 grand.
Okay.
Probably about 8,000, give or take.
All right. All right. So when you made the comment, why in the world would you pay, for example, retail, right? Let me give you an example of why sometimes it may make sense to pay exactly what the seller is asking for. And of course, there are a lot of different ways to look at opportunity, right? But the idea is to learn how to look at things different than the world does. When you can look at things from multiple vantage points, I think you'll be able to find opportunity, not only more of it, but more profitable opportunity. Okay, so let me use this as an example. So your average deal, your average margin is $10,000, right?
Yep, we probably do about 7 or 8 of these a month. So again, these are the deals that I throw away. These aren't the ones I want to keep to rehab or own as rentals.
Okay, cool. But your average margin is 10 grand, roughly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so $10,000, and when you first got on, you said, "Hey, John, I do about 100 of these a year," which is really good, man. So that's $1 million in revenue a year, right? $1 million in revenue. What's your expense ratio roughly? Maybe 50%. So of that 10,000, how much of that goes to paying your marketing, your sales team? Marketing is probably 30%, right? So your sales team is what, maybe another 20, so about 50%.
Yeah, I'd say 50 to 60 even.
Okay, so let's say 60. Actually, it's probably like 30, 70% now that I think about it. Your profit margin is probably about 30% of that $100,000 or that $1,000,000 a year, right? So you're netting
Mhm.
about $300,000, right? Okay,
Yep.
very profitable. Good business, man. Running a really good business. Awesome. Congratulations to you. Let me give you a high five real quick. So let me give you another perspective. So you're netting now $300,000 a year. Your revenue is $1,000,000. Okay. So if I'm looking for an opportunity that can generate $1,000,000 a year in revenue, okay, from a piece of commercial real estate or an apartment building. Let's use an apartment building. All right. And my margin is the same. Say after I pay all of my expenses, including debt service, loan, right? My profit margin, I'm netting about $300,000, and this is off of one apartment building. Now, say I have partners in there. So 70, say out of, I have 10 partners in there, and now I own 30% of that $300,000 in revenue. Okay. So that means that I'm walking away with 100 grand. I'm paying out my partners a return of 200 grand. Okay. So now when next year rolls around, that building is going to generate likely $300,000 in profit plus maybe another 3 to 5%, right? While I'm off doing like 10 other different things. Okay. So what I'm trying to show you is there are times where someone may say, hey, look, you want to buy this? No problem. But what I want you to do is I'm willing to take X price. But if X price is going to create a residual or perpetual income stream for me and it's really profitable, I'll buy that all day long. I'll give the seller exactly what they want for it because I'm willing to hold it long term. Now, it's not right or wrong, like you said. It just is. And it's just another perspective, right? So you're running a really profitable business at a 30% margin. There are other opportunities out there, say buildings, multiple units in them that can generate a 30% margin, right? Not right or wrong. It just is. And it's another perspective. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to share that, man, so that our audience, they're looking at this thing from a couple different lenses. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do because you're running a really profitable business, great margins, you have systems in place. You're basically running, man, a marketing machine on steroids, right? You have really, really good marketing in place to be able to
Yeah.
pull that
So
off.
wholesaling is a means to an end for me, though. Yeah.
But where I'm going, man, is you've dialed this in so well, right? Where you can sell 100 of these every year at a 10% profit margin. Really good. Okay. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that is if we're talking about advertising, marketing, and sales, like you're a pretty good person to talk to because you're doing it, right? And it's
Yeah.
profitable.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't go to someone and say, hey, man, you think we can talk about some marketing, some advertising and marketing if they could not demonstrate that they were profitable and running a really good marketing machine? So the point is, you are. All right. So now let's pivot a little bit and we're going to use your marketing expertise, man, to now talk about appointment setting. All right. So now they qualify, seller qualifies. Okay. Now you move to the appointment. What are some tips that you've learned over the years to increase your appointment ratio? Because that's a really big one, right? You have a great
Yeah.
lead,
Yeah.
you make
Absolutely.
an
So,
offer, you're qualified. Now you're moving towards the appointment. So, can you share some tips there?
right. Basically, when we are doing all of our marketing, we are looking for our next rental property or a good fix and flip. We are never typically marketing to wholesale. That's just kind
Gotcha.
of what happens whenever we get a deal that comes in and we decide that we don't like that street or the price or the whatever, right? So we basically will set appointments on anything that we can get at a discount. Basically, we don't necessarily know that all the time whenever we are talking to the seller right out the gate, setting the appointment, but we can determine if they have motivation or not.
Gotcha.
Therefore, it'll help us know, if there's possibility for a discount or not.
There it is.
We'll basically set appointments with anything that looks like it could be a good lead for us and or that has some level of motivation and is willing to sell at a discount. If they're shopping for an offer, let's say they have a mortgage that's at what they owe, we'll typically ask them, are they willing to bring money to close? Like I'll straight up ask them that because if they're not, then there's no discount to be had and I don't really want to run that appointment.
Okay, so let's back up a little. So, really, what you're qualifying for, man, is you're qualifying for motivation. That's a really good word
100%.
to use because that's really what you're qualifying for is motivation, which is really important to qualify for that, right? Because none of us want to spend time pursuing an opportunity, no matter what it is, if the seller on the other side has no motivation to actually come to terms at a price that actually makes sense for everybody, right? And there's no motivation to do that. So, okay, cool. I really like that. I really like that. So, man, look, I'm going to shift now. So, we talked about advertising, leads coming in. We used marketing a little bit by you talking about some of the different offers that you're making and then how you qualify for motivation actually before you make the offer. And then you're going in for the appointment. So, what does the appointment look like? And maybe some things that you do to help keep your appointment ratios high.
Yeah, guys, I have been told a lot of times by a lot of people that I'm like really good at sales, but I disagree. I don't think that I'm really good at sales at all. What I am really good at is just making a friend with people, and I'm a really good listener. So I'll go out on my appointments, and my number one goal is to make a friend. My number one goal is to get them to save my cell phone number or my work line in their phone, right? I obviously want to make an offer on those appointments. I want to let them know that I'm not there to sell them. And a lot of people go into this with the mindset of it's you versus the seller, it's you versus the seller. Well, that's not the mindset I take at all. Instead, I take it as, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's me and you versus the marketplace. I'm not going to overpay you if I can go to the market and get the same deal elsewhere. So let's together determine what we would call our ARV or after repair value. And then let's walk around together and determine our repairs. And we'll use the simple maximum allowable offer formula, which is MAO equals ARV times your discount rate minus your repairs. Discount rate for me is typically around 70%. And I'll explain to them the entire process. So it's not me versus them, John. It's me and them versus the market. And what I will do on these appointments is I will give them a very low offer, but it doesn't necessarily come off as low and it's not perceived as low. Instead, my job on the appointment is to justify the offer as being fair. Now, of course, it's still going to be low, but it's going to also be fair after you put me in the room with somebody for 20 minutes and I can show them those comps and those pictures of those other properties, as well as the cost of fixing their property up. And a lot of people think, well, 70%, Dave, wow, that's a lot. How do you overcome that? That's the easiest part. This is a business. I am an investor. I do this for a living to make money. This is how I put food on my table. Therefore, if I'm going to take the risk of borrowing the money to buy the property and borrowing the money to fix it up and have the holding costs and the closing costs and the agent commissions and all these other things, I need to make a minimum of 15, if not 20% return on my money. Well, Dave, 20%, that's not the same as multiplying it by 0.7, that'd
Okay,
be
so
zero
but
point
how
0.8.
much money
Well,
are you putting out though if you're doing most of these wholesale? You're wanting to make 15, 20%. How much are you typically?
no. 15 to 20% is if I would be to buy it, to fix it up and flip it.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the part of the pitch, right? So the MAO formula, right?
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, so the MAO formula is your maximum allowable offer. So the typical MAO formula is ARV, your after repair value, multiplied by zero point 0.7 or the discount rate. If you're a good investor, your discount rate will change from zip code to zip code, from school district to school district, from neighborhood to neighborhood. But if you don't know your discount rate, go to 70%. So it's your after repair value multiplied by 70%. So you take off 20% for your profit and 10% because that's the cost of selling a piece of property. It's about 10%.
All right. All right. So that's a formula. So question that I have for you, and it's more of a problem that I'm asking you to solve, right? Because if you can solve this problem, I know then that you take that formula that you just described and now you turn it into a multi-million dollar formula, right? And so we're going to talk about this on this call. And so this is a golden question for you, man. All right. So what you just described, you're doing 100 deals a year. And what you just described will work with a seller that may not be as aware of what market values really are, or they don't have the resources to put into the property to bring it up to market value, to maximize market value and sell, right? In the world that I live in, and most of the folks on this call, they're marketing to sellers that, for the most part, 90% of them are familiar with what their property is worth. Okay. and they're pretty good at that. So my question to you is, okay, how would you change your approach in a market where you just have more sophisticated sellers that are more in tune to what market values are?
Well, this is a great question. So I think we're playing in different ballparks. You're playing baseball and playing football. Here's why.
Well, look, man, you're on third base, right? So you left second base, you slid into third with the formula that you just shared and some great nuggets on setting appointments. And now we're bringing this thing home, man. And this is the home run question. So Dave, I know you can solve it, man. If you're spending $300,000 a year in marketing, this has to be solvable.
So first and foremost, I don't value properties typically on their income. You guys do, right? So you had said more sophisticated investors or owners. Buying 75% of my properties are vacant.
Right.
So whenever I determine my after repair value or the value of the property, it's of the property fixed up, sold retail. It's not the value of it rented, or it's not, how much money I can make on the rehab. It's,
right.
Hey, look at all the other houses in this neighborhood that have recently sold. Let's look at those conditions and let's determine what an ARV for this one is, right? If the seller if they're sophisticated or they know what they're doing, they're going to know that their property isn't in the same condition as these other comps. So therefore it's going to have to be discounted to incorporate or factor in those repairs, right?
Okay, cool. So Dave,
I'm also not looking at raising rents or looking at the income approach. Typically, I'd say 90+% of the time. So I think you guys are, right? And that's
we are. But you said something, man, that was actually really useful, very, very valuable. You shared something that was extraordinarily valuable. And that is that most of the properties, man, that you're acquiring, that you're marketing to owners that have properties that are vacant. The seller is selling a property that's distressed, but in many cases it's vacant, right? So is there something specific that you're doing to market to or to generate that type of lead?
Yes and no. So like in my message on my radio, I don't say, hey, want to sell your house? I'll pay you full retail with no commission. That's not my pitch. Instead, it's, hey, I'm Dave. I buy houses. Have a house that, that needs 50 grand worth of work. Call me. Have a tenant that's not paying their rent. Call me. Can't make your mortgage payment. Call me. Have past due taxes. Call me. So my message is distressed sellers. When we're pulling our lists, I'm not looking for, people that have just bought their house 3 years ago. I'm looking for people that have owned the house for 10 plus years that have high equity. And on top of that, I'm layering this, right? They've owned it for 10 years. They have at least 30, if not 40 or 50% equity. And it's also absentee owned, or it's also vacant, or it also has tax delinquents. I search for a property that's distressed, or more importantly, a person that's distressed. And let me tell you this, John, if I come across a distressed person that owns a distressed property, that's how I slide into home base.
Awesome. Hey, buddy, well, we're at the end of our show. Dave, I really appreciate you being on, man. You slid into home base. You got home. You scored. You brought everybody in. And for that, man, I appreciate you being on the show. Some very good commentary. Appreciate the insights around advertising, marketing, and sales, the lifeblood of any business for that matter. So thanks so much, man. How do people get in touch with you, buddy?
My Instagram is probably my favorite place. I got over 100,000 followers over on Instagram. My tag, or my whatever you call it, is my full name, David Allen Dodge. ALAN is how you spell my middle name. So David Allen Dodge. That would be the best place to connect. Yeah, shoot me a message if you guys, want more information about me. I have a free course, multiple books, and I do coaching nationwide on wholesaling too.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, hey, buddy, got to get on this show. You've been great, and I will stay in touch for sure, man. Thanks so much for being on it, right?
Hey, thanks, John. Later, buddy.
Anytime, man. Clarity of purpose creates our greatest competitive advantage. When we transform apartment buildings to thriving communities, we improve how people live and create assets with high profit margins. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this up with a friend. I'm John Brackett, bringing you things you can implement right away.